The morning it happened, the sky looked too
You
calm for
know,
the kind of storm my life
been
had been
thinking.
carrying.
Really?
Tell me more.
I remember standing outside the community shelter, holding a styrofoam cup of cheap coffee, watching the sunlight push through thin clouds like it was fighting to exist. That's when I saw her, Marina, slumped against a concrete pillar, hugging a duffel bag that was clearly heavier than she was. Her eyes were tired, red around the edges, the kind of exhaustion no sleep could fix. I didn't know it then, but that morning would change everything. Before the story unfolds, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unexpected ways people enter our lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Chronicles. Your support truly keeps these stories alive. I had met Marina 2 weeks before that morning. She'd appeared at the after-school volunteer program where I taught sketching classes to kids who had nowhere else to go during the day. She wasn't shy, but she was quiet, the kind of quiet filled with watching, measuring, trying to understand her place in a world that hadn't been kind to her. The kids loved her instantly. She had this warmth about her, a way of kneeling down to their level, listening like their words had weight and meaning. I noticed it the first day, the gentleness in her voice when she praised a child's drawing, even if it was nothing more than scribbles. For some reason, it stayed with me. Over the next days, she kept showing up, always in the same pale denim jacket, always with her hair tied into a messy knot like she'd rushed out without caring. She wasn't paid, it was volunteer work. And yet she showed up on time every single day, offering help before anyone asked. She never talked about herself unless someone forced her to. That made me curious, because people usually love talking about themselves. But she didn't. One evening, after we finished a long day of cleaning spilled paint from the classroom tables, I jokingly told her, "You practically live here. If you ever need a place to stay, just move in with me." I said it casually, with half a laugh. She laughed too, but something in her smile wavered for a split second, like the offer, even as a joke, hit a part of her that ached. I didn't think about it again, but the next morning, when I saw her at the shelter with that duffel bag and that haunted look, everything inside me stilled for a moment. She just stared at me, her fingers gripping the strap of her bag. Then she whispered, "Is your offer still good?" The way she asked, it was too soft, too fragile. It didn't sound like a joke. It sounded like the last strength she had left. My first instinct was to ask questions, but I swallowed them. Instead, I nodded. Yeah. Yes. Of course. Her shoulders fell, like the tension that had been holding her upright finally let go. That's when I noticed how shaky her hands were. She was exhausted, not just physically, but down to the bone. We walked to my small apartment on the east side of town, past rows of modest houses and shops not yet awake. The streets were washed in daylight, and the world felt strangely peaceful, as if it didn't know someone beside me was fighting to stay standing. Inside, Marina stepped in slowly, her eyes moving around the space like she was afraid to break something. My apartment wasn't fancy, just a rented two-bedroom with mismatched furniture and walls covered in my failed painting attempts, but it was warm. "You can take the second room," I said, trying to sound casual, like this was a normal thing I did. "It's not much, but it's more than I have," she said quietly. She put her bag down and stood there for a long moment, her fingers touching the fabric of the curtains, the bookshelf, the lamp beside the couch, as if confirming this place was real. Over the next week, she didn't tell me what happened. She helped around the house, washed dishes before I even noticed they were dirty, cooked simple meals, and kept to herself when she wasn't at the volunteer program. She smiled when spoken to, but it never reached her eyes. One night, after returning from the center, I found her sitting alone on the small balcony, knees pulled up to her chest, staring at the sky. I brought 2 mugs of tea and placed one beside her. She didn't drink it, but she held it, letting the warmth seep into her hands. After a long silence, she finally said, "I didn't know where else to go." I didn't push her. People open up only when they're ready. The next morning, she joined me in a daylight walk to the corner store. The sun was bright, and the city felt softer than usual. She walked close but not too close, hands in her pockets, shoulders slightly hunched. She looked around at the shops, the people, the kids chasing each other on the sidewalk. It was the first time I saw a hint of calm on her face. After we returned, I found a note she'd left on the kitchen table. It said, "Thank you for giving me one day of peace. One day." Those words hit harder than I expected. Later that week, she finally told me everything, not in one dramatic confession, but in pieces, like small shards she carefully handed over. She'd lived with someone she trusted. Someone she thought cared for her. But trust can be dangerous when given to the wrong hands. The relationship had turned toxic.
Control disguised as concern. Isolation disguised as love. Every time she tried to leave, he tightened his grip. Until she finally walked out with nothing but a duffel bag and the courage she didn't know she had left. She laughed bitterly when she told me she'd been sleeping in the shelter the last 2 nights, pretending everything was fine while volunteering during the day. That laugh. I've never heard something so hollow. Living with me didn't instantly solve everything. There were days she woke up panicked from nightmares. Days she apologized for existing too loudly, too quietly, too much. Days she tried to fade into herself, like she didn't want to take space in the world. And every time, I told her she was safe, that she didn't owe me anything, that she deserved to breathe without fear. Slowly, so slowly, it started to show. The first time she laughed genuinely was when she beat me at a drawing challenge with a sketch of a cat that looked like a lopsided potato. The kids found it hilarious and insisted we hang it on the wall. The first time she sang, very softly, was while washing dishes, humming a tune I didn't recognize but wanted to hear again. The first time she told me she slept through the night, I saw light in her eyes I hadn't seen before. But the real change happened on a warm, bright day when we were walking home from the center. A stray dog followed us, tail wagging furiously. Marina knelt down and scratched behind its ear, her face gentle in the sunlight. When the dog leaned into her touch, she smiled, a real smile, wide and bright and full of life. I felt something shift in that moment, like her heart finally remembered how to feel safe. Weeks passed. Routine became comfort. My home became our space, quiet but healing. She decorated her room with small drawings, folded little paper cranes that she hung near the window, filled the kitchen with the smell of fresh tea every morning. And every day, she became more herself. One afternoon, after we finished cleaning the art room at the center, she said, "You saved me." I shook my head. "No. You saved yourself. I just opened a door." She looked down at her hands, sunlight touching her hair, and said, "Sometimes all someone needs is a door that doesn't slam shut." Life continued, and for the first time in a long while, it felt hopeful. Marina applied for a job at a small bookstore and got it. She started taking evening classes in design. She made friends. She rediscovered her own voice, and through it all, she remained in my apartment, not because she had nowhere else to go, but because she chose to stay. And I found myself grateful every single day. One night, while we were eating dinner, she suddenly said, "I never answered your joke properly." I blinked. "What joke?" She smiled. "When you asked if I wanted to move in with you." I froze, heart skipping. "You did answer it." She shook her head softly. "Not really. I didn't move in because of your joke. I moved in because you gave me a chance to breathe again. To feel human again." Then she looked straight at me, her eyes warm and steady, and said, "And if the offer is still good, I'd like to stay. Not because I need to, but because I want to." In that moment, everything around us seemed to quiet. The sounds of cars outside, the hum of the ceiling fan, even my heartbeat felt like it paused before rushing back in. She wasn't the broken, exhausted person I'd found at the shelter. She was someone rebuilt, stronger, softer, alive again. I nodded, feeling something swell in my chest. The offer was never a joke. The sunlight through the window wrapped around her like an embrace, and for the first time since I met her, she looked at peace. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Chronicles. Your engagement truly helps reach more people who need hope.